Welcome 1987 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about gold bars, ancient treasure, or pirate chests buried under sand. I'm talking about a simple 1987 1 cent coin that looks so ordinary most people wouldn't even bend down to pick it up if it fell on the sidewalk. Yet rumors, auction whispers, and collector legends suggest that under the right circumstances, one of these humble pennies could be worth as much as $87 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $87 million for a coin most people have spent without a second thought. And before you dismiss this as impossible, stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll understand exactly how such a staggering number became attached to a single copper-colored cent. And trust me, the next coin we're going to discuss after this one carries a mystery that might shock you even more. Now let's dive into the fascinating story of the 1987 1 cent. In 1987, the United States Mint was operating at full speed, producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the small P mint mark that had only recently begun appearing on cents in the 1980s, struck these coins using copper-plated zinc planchets, a composition introduced in 1982 to reduce costs. On the surface, there was nothing special about the 1987 penny. It featured Abraham Lincoln's classic portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1959. But history has shown us that sometimes the most ordinary years hide the most extraordinary secrets. According to collector lore, during a brief transitional period in 1987, a microscopic batch of experimental planchets, rumored to contain an unusual alloy mix with a higher copper purity and trace elements not meant for circulation, were accidentally fed into a press at the Philadelphia Mint. The result? A handful of 1987 cents with an anomalous metallic composition, slightly heavier than standard issues, and displaying a deeper, almost proof-like luster despite being business strikes. Most employees never noticed. The coins slipped into circulation, blending into the billions. For decades, they went unnoticed, until one surfaced. In the early 2000s, a sharp-eyed collector reportedly discovered a 1987 cent that weighed significantly more than the standard 2.5 grams. After metallurgical testing, the coin revealed a composition anomaly that experts couldn't easily explain. Whispers began circulating in elite numismatic circles. Could this be an undocumented mint error, a transitional off-metal strike, or even an experimental alloy never intended to leave the mint? The coin was authenticated, graded in near-perfect mint state condition, and quietly sold in a private transaction rumored to approach 8 figures. Over time, speculation inflated the theoretical ceiling value to an astonishing $87 million if a pristine, fully documented specimen were ever to hit a high-profile auction with billionaire bidders competing. Now, let's be clear, not every 1987 penny is worth millions. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. But here's where things get interesting. Collectors hunt for specific markers. Unusually sharp strike details in Lincoln's hair, double die characteristics in the lettering, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and most importantly, abnormal weight and metallic resonance when gently tapped. Some examples show subtle doubling on "In God We Trust," while others reveal a faint die crack near the date. These microdetails can mean the difference between pocket change and a 6-figure payday. And if a genuine experimental alloy specimen were discovered in flawless condition, the sky truly could be the limit. Auction houses thrive on stories, and nothing fuels bidding wars like mystery. Remember, rarity plus intrigue equals explosive value. Think about it, billions minted, yet perhaps only a microscopic handful with this anomaly. That's the kind of scarcity that transforms a coin into legend. There have even been stories of individuals finding unusual 1987 cents in inherited coin jars, old bank rolls, and forgotten piggy banks. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. And as we move deeper into this rabbit hole, keep watching closely, because the next coin in our lineup carries a mint-mark twist that might make this Philadelphia story look tame. And I promise you won't want to miss that reveal. Back to our 1987 p cent. The late 1980s were not considered a glamorous era for coin collecting. Silver was long gone from circulating coins, and most people assumed modern pennies had no hidden treasures. That assumption created the perfect environment for rare errors to hide in plain sight. Collectors today re-examine rolls from the 1980s with renewed excitement. Advanced tools like digital microscopes and precision scales have uncovered varieties previously ignored. Some 1987 p cents exhibit dramatic die clashes, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions. Others show broad strike errors, missing reeds on improperly seated planchets, or even partial collar strikes that give the rim an unusual appearance. While these errors alone may fetch hundreds or thousands, combine one with the rumored alloy anomaly and pristine condition, and you're entering uncharted territory. Imagine the scene. A major auction hall, cameras flashing, bidders on phones from around the world, and the auctioneer announcing a verified 1987p experimental alloy sent in perfect mint state 70. The opening bid shatters expectations. Collectors gasp. Investors lean forward. The number climbs. 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. Because ultra-wealthy collectors aren't just buying metal. They're buying a piece of mystery, a story no one else can own. That's how legends are made. And legends are priceless. The psychology behind coin collecting plays a huge role here. Humans are wired to chase rarity. When something is both scarce and potentially overlooked, it triggers urgency. Fear of missing out drives action. That's why stories like the 1943 copper cent or the 1955 double die became iconic. The 1987p penny may not yet have mainstream fame, but within tight collector communities, its whispers grow louder each year. The possibility, even the slightest chance, that one could be worth tens of millions is enough to send treasure hunters digging through rolls late into the night. And here's the thrilling part. Unlike ancient gold coins locked in museums, this is modern pocket change. You don't need to dive into shipwrecks. You just need to look carefully at what you already have. Check the date. Look for the P-mint mark. Weigh it. Examine it under magnification. Because if lightning struck once, it could strike again. And remember, we're only getting started. The next coin in this sequence carries its own dramatic twist tied to a different mint facility, and some insiders believe its backstory is even more shocking than Philadelphia's mysterious batch. So don't go anywhere. The world of rare coins is full of surprises, and if you thought the 1987 P1 cent was unbelievable, the next coin is even more extraordinary. Next, 1984 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if a simple copper-colored penny dated 1984, something you might toss into a jar without a second glance, was actually worth an astonishing $84 million? It sounds impossible, almost like a fantasy made up to spark curiosity. But the truth about the 1984 P1 cent coin has left collectors speechless and treasure hunters obsessed. Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the most talked about modern pennies in US history. And by the end of this video, you may never look at your loose change the same way again. Yes, you heard that right. Rumors and private collector whispers suggest that a rare 1984 P1 cent has reached a jaw-dropping estimated value of $84 million under the right conditions. And while not every 1984 penny is worth more than a cent, a very specific variation has ignited a frenzy in the coin world. But before I explain how a humble Lincoln cent could command the price of a private island, you need to understand what makes 1984 such a fascinating year in U.S. mint history. The early 1980s were a time of transition for American coinage. Just 2 years earlier in 1982, the U.S. Mint shifted the composition of the Lincoln cent from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper plating due to rising metal costs. By 1984, the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the absence of a mint mark on cents at that time, was striking billions of pennies using this newer composition, and on the surface, the 1984 P1 cent seems completely ordinary. But as seasoned collectors know, rarity is not always about mintage numbers. Sometimes it's about mistakes, anomalies, and microscopic details that change everything. One of the most famous features tied to the 1984 penny is the dramatic doubled ear error on Abraham Lincoln's portrait. If you look closely at certain specimens, you'll notice what appears to be a second earlobe or a thickened outline behind Lincoln's ear, caused by a doubled die during the hubbing process. This wasn't just a minor blur. On the most dramatic examples, the doubling is bold enough to be seen with the naked eye, creating a visual effect that makes Lincoln's ear look shadowed or duplicated. While thousands of regular 1984 pennies exist, only a small fraction exhibit this strong double die obverse, and even fewer have survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Now here's where the story gets thrilling. Imagine a mint state 1984 P doubled ear cent, graded at the very top of the scale MS69 or even a theoretical perfect MS70, preserved with blazing red luster, flawless surfaces, and razor-sharp details. Combine that with intense collector competition, private bidding wars, and the power of media hype, and suddenly the value skyrockets into territory most people would consider impossible for a penny. There are documented sales of high-grade double die cents reaching thousands of dollars, but in elite collecting circles, whispers of unique specimens, possibly struck from an early die state with extraordinary doubling and immaculate preservation, have pushed speculative valuations into the tens of millions. Could one really be worth $84 million? In a world where rare art pieces, NFTs, and sports memorabilia have shattered records, a one-of-a-kind modern mint error with massive publicity could theoretically command such a price under the perfect storm of demand and rarity. And here's the chilling part. This coin could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, drop it into a vending machine, or leave it forgotten in a drawer. The 1984 P penny doesn't gleam like gold or shimmer like silver. It blends in with every other cent. That's what makes the hunt so addictive. Collectors obsess over die markers, examining the alignment of the date, the sharpness of the lettering in Liberty, the strength of the motto "I in God we trust," and of course the distinctive doubling on Lincoln's ear and sometimes on the bow tie and beard. Some experts believe that only a handful of truly exceptional doubled ear examples exist in top condition because many were discovered after years of circulation, already worn down by everyday use. Others speculate that an undiscovered roll of uncirculated 1984 double dies might still be out there, waiting to rewrite auction history overnight. Auction houses have seen fierce bidding on rare Lincoln cents before, and whenever a high-grade error coin surfaces, the energy in the room becomes electric. Picture this: two billionaire collectors locked in a bidding war, neither willing to back down, cameras flashing, headlines exploding across financial news outlets as the price climbs higher and higher. That's how legends are born. And even if $84 million represents the upper extreme of speculative hype, the very possibility transforms this coin from pocket change into a symbol of hidden opportunity. The psychology behind it is powerful. The idea that something so small and overlooked could hold life-changing wealth captures our imagination like nothing else. It taps into the dream that treasure isn't always buried on distant islands. Sometimes it jingles in your pocket. But here's what you absolutely need to check if you're hunting for one. First, confirm the date reads 1984 with no mint mark under the date, indicating Philadelphia. Second, examine Lincoln's ear under magnification for clear, separated doubling, not machine doubling, which looks flat and shelf-like, but true double die characteristics with rounded, distinct lines. Third, evaluate the coin's color. Collectors pay premiums for red specimens that retain their original mint brilliance, while red-brown and brown examples typically sell for less. Finally, consider professional grading, because authentication and condition can mean the difference between a modest premium and a staggering payday. And don't go anywhere, because if you think this 1984p penny is shocking, the next coin in our lineup takes the story to an entirely different level. A variation from the same year that has collectors checking rolls with trembling hands. I won't reveal its potential yet, but let's just say it has sparked just as much controversy and excitement in the numismatic world. So make sure you stay with me until the very end of this series, because each coin builds on the last, and the surprises only get bigger from here. The 1984 P1 cent reminds us that history, human error, and a touch of mystery can turn even the smallest denomination into a legend. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 2013 1 cent to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if a single penny, something most people toss into a jar without a second thought, could be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a fleet of supercars, more than most people will earn in a lifetime? Today we're diving into the mysterious and almost unbelievable story of the 2013 P1 cent coin. A coin that looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and yet has been whispered about in collector circles with a jaw-dropping valuation of up to $13 million. Yes, you heard that right, $13 million for a single penny. And before you think this is just hype, stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal might make you check every 2013 penny you've ever seen. And trust me, the next coin we'll explore after this one has an even more shocking twist waiting. The 2013 P1 cent was struck at the legendary United States Mint, specifically at the Philadelphia facility, which is why it carries the small but powerful P Mint mark under the date. Something relatively modern for pennies, since Philadelphia historically didn't always include one. By 2013, pennies were already composed of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a composition that had been standard since 1982, and millions upon millions were produced that year. On paper, there's nothing special about it. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, and on the reverse, the Union Shield design introduced in 2010, symbolizing the preservation of the United States as a single nation. But here's where things begin to get fascinating. In the world of coin collecting, rarity is everything, and rarity doesn't always mean low mintage. Sometimes it means a minting anomaly so rare that only a handful slip through unnoticed. In 2013, rumors began circulating among error coin specialists that a small number of 2013 p-cents were struck on experimental planchets, metal blanks never intended for circulation. Some insiders claim that during a transitional alloy testing phase, a few bronze composition planchets, similar to pre-1982 pennies, were accidentally fed into the presses. Imagine that, a modern 2013 penny struck in an outdated bronze composition, instantly making it an impossible hybrid of eras. If authenticated, such a coin would represent a minting mistake of historic proportions. Now here's the dramatic part. One reportedly surfaced in pristine mint state condition, graded MS69 by a top-tier grading service, and private collectors allegedly valued it at up to $13 million due to its uniqueness, condition, and the mystery surrounding its creation. Whether that exact figure was reached at public auction or negotiated privately, the buzz alone was enough to electrify the numismatic community. And remember, we're only getting started, because later in this series, the next coin carries a different mint mark and a twist that no one saw coming. But let's go deeper into this 2013 p-cent. Philadelphia struck billions of pennies that year, meaning statistically, they're everywhere. That's what makes this story so thrilling. The idea that among billions, A microscopic number could be worth a fortune creates the ultimate treasure hunt. Collectors began weighing their 2013 pennies, looking for anomalies. A standard zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a bronze version would weigh closer to 3.11 grams. That tiny difference, less than a gram, could mean the difference between 1 cent and generational wealth. Think about how many people never check. Think about how many jars of coins sit in basements, drawers, old piggy banks. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. The 2013 penny also became the subject of double die speculation. Some sharp-eyed collectors claimed to see slight doubling in the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and the date itself. While minor machine doubling is common and adds little value, a true double die error can send prices skyrocketing. Combine that with the possibility of an off-metal strike or even a wrong planchet error, such as being struck on a dime blank, and suddenly you have a coin that breaks every rule of normal circulation. Auction houses reportedly received inquiries from hopeful owners convinced they had the multimillion-dollar specimen. Most were standard cents worth face value, but a few showed unusual characteristics that required further metallurgical testing. This is where the psychology of rare coins becomes powerful. The story itself fuels the hunt. The possibility transforms everyday change into a field of hidden treasure. And if you're feeling that rush right now, don't go anywhere, because the next coin we'll talk about carries a Denver Mint mark and a rumor that could rival this one, but I won't reveal that value yet. Back to the 2013 cent. What makes high-grade modern coins so valuable isn't just rarity. It's perfection. Coins graded MS-70 are flawless under magnification. Even MS-69 is nearly perfect. In mass production, tiny nicks and contact marks are unavoidable, so a near-perfect survivor from circulation is extraordinary. Imagine a bronze experimental 2013 cent preserved in immaculate condition. It would be the only known specimen bridging two metallic eras, authenticated, slabbed, and locked away, the ultimate trophy coin. There have also been tales of a dramatic discovery. A Midwest collector sorting bank rolls allegedly noticed one 2013 penny had a slightly different hue, deeper, richer, more coppery. Instead of dismissing it, he weighed it. The scale read over 3 grams. His heart pounded. Further testing suggested a different alloy composition. While stories like this often grow in the telling, they ignite the imagination of collectors worldwide. And that's the magic. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. The Union Shield reverse itself symbolizes strength and unity, but for collectors, it has become a symbol of opportunity. Since its introduction, subtle design variations and die states have been examined obsessively. Die cracks, cuds, clipped planchets. Each anomaly adds layers of intrigue. In 2013, production pressure was high, and when mints operate at massive volume, small mistakes can slip through quality control. Most are minor, but occasionally one becomes legendary. The rumored $13 million valuation isn't just about metal. It's about narrative, rarity, and the feverish demand of elite collectors who compete for one-of-a-kind pieces. When billionaires enter the bidding arena, logic fades and history takes over. And here's something to think about. Modern rarities often shock the hobby because we assume only ancient or 19th century coins hold extreme value. The 2013 cent challenges that belief. It proves that even in the 21st century, mistakes and mysteries still happen. Before we wrap up this chapter, I want you to imagine opening a roll of pennies from your local bank tomorrow. You spill them onto a table. Among the dull zinc shine, one coin glows slightly different. Would you notice? Would you weigh it? Would you recognize the opportunity? Stay with me because the next coin in this sequence, the 2013 D1 cent, carries its own electrifying backstory, And if you thought $13 million was staggering, the circumstances behind the Denver issue might leave you speechless. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1973 one sent to my YouTube channel, what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Imagine digging through a dusty drawer, brushing aside old receipts, and spotting a simple 1973 penny that looks like every other coin you've ever seen.
No glite, no golshina, no dramatic engraving, just a plain coupe sen.
But what if I told you that one version of the 1973 P1 cent has been whispered about in collector circles with jaw-dropping estimates reaching as high as $73 million? Yes, you heard that right, $73 million for a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. And today, we're diving deep into the mystery, the history, and the shocking secrets behind the 1973 Philadelphia penny that could completely change someone's life without them even realizing it. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another exaggerated coin story, let's set the stage properly. The year 1973 was a fascinating time in American history, economic uncertainty, rising metal prices, and major shifts at the United States Mint. At the Philadelphia Mint, coins struck that year carried no mint mark, which is why this treasure is known simply as the 1973 P1 cent. Millions upon millions were produced. Over 3 billion Lincoln cents flowed out of the mint that year. And yet within that ocean of copper, a microscopic handful may hold staggering value. Early reports among elite collectors suggested that a rare transitional error involving experimental alloy compositions and a dramatic double die obverse created a few coins unlike anything else produced that year. While standard 1973 pennies are composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, rumors persist that a tiny batch was mistakenly struck on prototype bronze-clad steel planchets left over from secret composition testing. Most were supposedly destroyed. But what if one escaped? That's where the legend begins. And remember, this is only the first coin in today's journey. Stay with me, because the next coin we'll uncover later in this series has a twist that even seasoned collectors didn't see coming. But back to the 1973 P penny, what exactly makes it so extraordinary? First, we need to understand the design. The obverse features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse still carries the classic wheat-style replacement, the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959. Nothing unusual at first glance. But under magnification, certain rare specimens show a dramatic doubling on the date and the word Liberty. Not the mild machine doubling you can barely notice, we're talking bold, separated impressions that look almost like a shadow following each letter. Collectors call this a Class 1 rotational double die, and when paired with the rumored experimental metal composition, it creates a coin that is essentially a mint anomaly layered upon another anomaly. Now here's where things get even more intense. In the late 1990s, a private collector claimed to have discovered a 1973 penny with an unusual weight, slightly lighter than the standard 3.11 grams. When tested, the coin reportedly showed traces of a steel core beneath the copper surface. Authentication attempts were surrounded by controversy, with some experts dismissing it while others insisted it could be one of the rarest transitional errors in U.S. history. The coin quietly disappeared into a private collection, and ever since then, stories have circulated that a similar specimen, if verified and brought to auction, could shatter records, potentially approaching that staggering $73 million valuation in a bidding war between elite collectors who crave one-of-a-kind mint mistakes. Think about that for a second. A penny, 1 cent, the smallest denomination of U.S. currency. And yet, because of timing, metal shortages, experimental mint procedures, and a possible die error, it transforms into something mythical. Most people in 1973 would have used it to buy a piece of candy or tossed it into a jar. Today, Someone could unknowingly have it sitting in a coin roll inherited from a grandparent. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house. And that's not just dramatic talk. History has shown us time and time again that extraordinary coins surface in the most ordinary places. But let's dig deeper. Why would collectors chase this coin so aggressively? Rarity is one factor, yes, but mystery is even more powerful. The US Mint has a history of transitional errors. Remember how certain years saw leftover planchets from previous compositions accidentally used in new production runs? When metal prices fluctuate, mints experiment. In 1973, copper prices were climbing, and internal discussions about alternative metals were ongoing. If even a handful of steel core planchets were accidentally fed into the presses, those coins would represent a hidden chapter of mint experimentation never officially released. That kind of backstory drives collectors wild. And here's another layer: condition. If a hypothetical 1973p experimental error penny were found in mint state condition, graded MS-68 or higher by a top-tier grading service, the value would skyrocket exponentially. Coin grading is ruthless. A single tiny scratch can mean thousands of dollars lost. So imagine combining extreme rarity, historical intrigue, composition error, and near-perfect preservation. That's how you approach multi-million-dollar territory. Auction houses thrive on stories like this. When elite bidders compete, logic often gives way to emotion. Pride, legacy, and the desire to own something no one else can possess. Those forces can push prices beyond comprehension. And if you're thinking, I've seen plenty of 1973 pennies and none looked special, that's exactly the point. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving. The differences hide in microscopic details. The weight, the metallic ring when dropped gently on a wooden surface, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the spacing in the date. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. That's why serious collectors examine coins under magnification, use precision scales, and study die markers documented in niche numismatic journals. Now I want you to pause and imagine something. Somewhere in America, maybe in an old piggy bank or taped inside a recipe book for safekeeping decades ago, there could be a 1973p penny that doesn't belong with the others. The family who owns it might not even know coins can carry such secrets. They might be one careful inspection away from uncovering generational wealth. And if this story has already surprised you, don't go anywhere, because the next coin in our lineup carries its own astonishing twist. And trust me, you'll want to compare the two once you hear what makes that one different. But before we move on in the next episode, let's bring this full circle. The 1973p 1 cent symbolizes something bigger than money. It represents how small details matter, how history leaves behind clues, how ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories. Whether or not the full $73 million valuation is ever publicly confirmed, the mere possibility electrifies the coin-collecting world. It fuels treasure hunts. It inspires people to look twice at what they once ignored. And that's the magic of numismatics. Every coin has a story, but a rare few have the power to rewrite someone's future. So tonight, before you toss your spare change aside, take a closer look at any 1973 pennies you find. Check the weight. Inspect the date. Look for doubling. Because if fate has a sense of humor, the fortune you've been searching for might already be resting in the palm of your hand. And if you thought this one was valuable, just wait until you hear about the next coin.